Ballet was born in Italy with Queen Catherine de' Medici of Florence, who loved to dance. Ballet moved to France when it was still a baby, when Queen Catherine de' Medici married the Duke of Orleans, Henri II, who became the King of France. More than 80 years after King Henri II, King Louis XIV became the King of France. King Louis XIV loved to dance too, and he adopted ballet and raised it as his own. Although ballet was born in Italy, the ballet terms are in French because ballet truly grew up in France with King Louis XIV. Louis XIV's ballets featured dance, music, poetry, and design. King Louis and his court wanted to establish order in the universe with his ballet creations. Ballet class begins with pliés. A plié is a stretch done by bending the knees over the toes. A plié may be done in each of the 5 positions of the feet. King Louis XIV had a nickname. People called him the Sun King because he liked bright, shiny objects and fancy clothes. When Louis started inventing ballet steps, he designed many of the steps so that he could show off his fancy clothes. There is a legend that dancers turn out their feet because Louis XIV wore very fancy shoes that curled up at the tips, and so he would trip if he didn't walk with his toes turned out. As ballet became more difficult, ballet dancers changed the design of their shoes so as to help their dancing. In the 1700s, a ballerina named Marie Camargo removed the heels from her shoes and shortened her skirt to show her ankles so that she could show off her fancy footwork. It wasn't until nearly 100 years later, in the early 1800s, that ballet dancers began to dance on the tips of their toes. The ballerina Marie Taglioni wanted to create the illusion of lightness, elevation, and grace in her dancing. She created the role of a fairy in the ballet La Sylphide. Her shoes were hardly like the point shoes of today. They were satin slippers that were reinforced only with extra darning on the sides and the toes. Today's shoes are much sturdier. They are made out of leather, burlap, paper, glue, and nails. Marius Petipa was a French dancer and choreographer born in 1818 in Marseille, France. A choreographer is the person who composes the sequence of steps and series of movements for a dance performance. In 1847, Mr. Petipa moved to Russia to take a position at the Imperial Theater of St. Petersburg, the capital of the Russian Empire. Over the next 60 years, he created several of the world's most famous ballets. In 1890, he choreographed the ballet The Sleeping Beauty. The music for the ballet The Sleeping Beauty was written by the Russian composer Pyotr Ilyich Tchaikovsky. Tchaikovsky composed the music for 3 of Petipa's most famous ballets. The first was Swan Lake, the second was The Sleeping Beauty, and the third was The Nutcracker. The Sleeping Beauty is a full-length ballet with a prologue and 3 acts. The ballet, The Sleeping Beauty, begins with the prologue. A prologue in a ballet is a part of the story found at the beginning of the ballet, before the first act, and apart from the main story. In The Sleeping Beauty, the prologue tells the story of when the Princess Aurora was a baby. The audience needs to understand what happened to Aurora when she was a baby in order to understand the main part of the story. The prologue in the ballet, The Sleeping Beauty, begins with the king and queen celebrating at the christening of their newly born baby girl named Aurora. All the fairies of the land are invited to the party except for Carabosse. The master of ceremonies for the king and queen forgot to send an invitation to Carabosse. Carabosse is an old and grumpy fairy who is very angry at not receiving the invitation to the party. She decides to come to the party anyway and seek revenge. All of the fairies offer gifts to the baby. Caraboss suddenly enters and offers her gift, which is a horrible gift. She puts a curse on Aurora and says that she will die on her 18th birthday from pricking her finger on a sharp object. The king and queen and fairies and members of the royal court are terrified, but the Lilac Fairy has not yet given her gift, and the Lilac Fairy is the most powerful fairy of all. Although she is unable to remove the curse, she is able to soften the curse. The Lilac Fairy proclaims that Aurora will not die, but that she will go into a deep sleep and will wake up only if she receives a kiss from a prince.